I received a message a while back from Kimberly Williams, who lives in Northern Ireland. And as you might imagine, it's hard enough to get a copy of my books in Northern Ireland because shipping is quite expensive to go out of the country, but also Kimberly is legally blind. And she asked me if my book was available on audio, and it's not. So I told Kimberly that I would read her a story or two and that I would publish that audio, if you will. And so I selected as my first audio a story from my first book, Shepherding Outdoors Volume 1. And I thought, since so many of my stories revolve around my girls and my family, and people ask me all the time, what is Shepherding Outdoors about? What does it mean? Well, it's about me trying to shepherd my family in a Christ-like way through the trials and tribulations of life. And oftentimes it's about the bumbles and mistakes that I make and the obstacles and hurdles that we have to overcome. And it's certainly not about how great a dad I am. It's really just about how good God is and how life can be strenuous sometimes. And you know, I hope my stories make you laugh, and I hope they make you cry in a good way, and I hope sometimes they may even make you cry in a sad way. So I thought the best place to start, since every book that I have written is about my family, is this little short story I wrote. By the way, all of my stories are true. This story is called and is about how the girls got their names: Bay, Cape, and Banks. As with most normal introductory conversations, people often ask, what are your daughters' names? And from there, the conversation that almost always follows with the same navigable channel. Hannah and I both agreed that should our firstborn be a boy, we would name him Noble Waters Merrill. My father's mother's maiden name was Waters, and it was a fitting tribute. I wanted to name our firstborn girl Maggie May, after Rod Stewart's rock and roll hit from the 1970s by the same name. Hannah, on the other hand, aptly pointed out that she didn't think it was a good idea to name our daughter after the woman who taught young Rod Stewart the ropes, so to speak. Rod Stewart wrote and sang, "Wake up, Maggie. I think I've got something to say to you. It's late September, and I really should be back at school. I know I keep you amused, but I feel I'm being used. Oh, Maggie, I couldn't have tried any more. You led me away from home just to save you from being alone. You stole my heart, and that's what really hurts." Good point, Hannah, I said as I hummed the song to myself. It is still a great song, though. So the search continued. I kept gravitating back to the name Waters, and eventually May turned into Bay. As some sort of a merger and compromise between May and Waters. Well, not long after that, Dr. Payne, who was a great doctor, soon reported that our firstborn would be a girl, and that fall, Olivia Bay Merrill was born. We had no intention of a theme to begin with, but 2 years later, we were pregnant with our second girl. I'd always loved the name Penelope, and it did suit our southern roots. So we both agreed Penelope it would be. And what of the middle name? We both liked the idea of a traditional southern first name, followed by a more whimsical, one-syllable middle name. But we were stumped. Months went by, and it seemed unavoidable at family gatherings. "Have y'all come up with a name yet?" they would ask. But then, much to our surprise, Hannah's grandmother mailed us a letter that included a proposed list of 10 names of childhood friends from her own youth. She understood the criteria well. They were all one-syllable, seemingly whimsical names. Hope, June, Liz, Kate. Kate? Well, that's interesting. Like the Cape of Good Hope at the southern tip of Africa? I asked Hannah. I like it, she said. And so, that fall, Penelope Kate Merrill became our second born. And little did we know that she would one day become the middle princess. Thus, the nautical theme was born. I had spent most of my life on the water, be it in the headwaters of the Mobile River Delta, the shallows and grass flats of Mobile Bay, or the vast expanse of the Gulf of Mexico. That is where I feel most at home, anywhere on the water, that is. I've seen the best and nearly the worst of what Mother Ocean has to offer, and I've never been able to resist her call. So, paying tribute to those memories and experiences and the love that I have for the freedom that comes from being on the water, the name seemed logical and appropriate for my girls. We thought that 2 children was all that God had in store for us, but 4 years after Kate was born, Hannah realized she was pregnant again. Although we didn't see it at the time, this last child truly was a blessing from God and a demonstration of His divine wisdom. Now, however, we had a theme. Bay and Cape were both nautical terms. With no plan for a third child to come, we never even contemplated a third name. During that third pregnancy, Hannah often reminded me that I would soon be getting fixed. After all, she was 35. The other 2 girls were now in school. Hannah had been getting ready to resume her professional career when she realized she was pregnant. This pregnancy was more life-changing than the other 2 because it was unexpected. And we were both joyful about the gift of the child, but somewhat taken aback at the surprise of it all. Hannah was persistent, though. After I have this baby, you're going to the doctor, she'd say. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, I'd respond. Lake, cove, dock. We searched maps and atlases and nautical charts and maritime books. Some were great names, but nothing felt quite right. We searched relentlessly, and even though we knew she would be a she, nothing seemed to stand out from the rest. Nothing jumped off the pages at us. I think it was a river reference that finally brought her name to mind. Maybe it was Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn on the banks of the mighty Mississippi. Honestly, can't remember where the original thought came from. But Hannah said, "What about Banks?" And there it was. Virginia Banks Merrill was born just a few months later. And soon enough, I went to the doctor just as Hannah had wanted. And now when people ask where the name Banks came from, well, we always tell them, because that is where the water ends. Hope y'all have a great day.